Salutations and welcome back to my channel. Oh, I can't do that. I have never been so sick in my entire life, and this isn't the regular kind of sick either. This is very peculiar. It just isn't going away. I think that's what's so frightening. I'm the kind of person who, since I became an adult, I have been acting preemptively when it comes to health. I know, for instance, that because I'm of Black African descent, that I'm of higher risk of cardiovascular disease, of obesity, of everything under the sun, basically. And so because of that, I go to the gym every day. I eat healthy. I do everything sort of preemptively that is going to ensure that these things stay at bay, at least in my mind. And so when I get sick, it usually lasts for a few days, and it's not something that ever lingers. It's something that I can deal with. The worst sickness I've ever had, I think, was the 𝑬𝑸𝑼𝑰𝑷𝑴𝑬𝑵 when I was in university, and that lasted for a week. And I remember that so clearly. I documented everything. I knew how to prevent it. I knew what food had caused it. I now never eat that food again. You know, I sort of have this entire mind map in place of how to deal with getting sick. And so when I got sick 3 weeks ago, now almost a month ago, I did not expect this. And brother, when I tell you that I have never been this sick, this is the most bizarre experience on earth. I cannot sit up straight like this for more than 20 minutes. Honest to God. This is the longest that I have sat up. I started doing my makeup this morning. And I mean, it takes me tops 15 minutes to do my makeup. I started at 9 o'clock this morning, and I've only been able to finish my makeup, and it's already 10 to 1. I've had to do it in intervals because I keep passing out. And I think over the past few days, it's just made me think, why is this happening? Why am I this sick? I feel like I can't get better because my body has just given up. It feels as if I've just given up on everything. I don't have an appetite. It's as if there is something at the top of my esophagus preventing me from eating. When I drink anything that isn't water, I just feel this nausea. And there's just this perpetual state of nausea that is just hanging heavily on my chest that I can't get rid of, and it won't go away. I feel so incredibly lonely and so incredibly alone. And when I got sick, it just really hit me how incredibly lonely not just I am, but how incredibly lonely so many young adults are. I read a study a few days ago because I was trying to figure out what was wrong with me, and it just really sunk in how incredibly lonely so many people are and how nobody cares. And that's fine. I mean, you know, everybody's living their own shit and life is hard for everybody. But it made me think about all these things that you see online of young people, especially teenagers now, who fake disorders, who do stupid things on the internet in order to, I feel, not just garner attention, but in order to just try and get somebody to care. And I think this is a really serious thing. It's so serious that it has honestly resulted in me being sick for so long, to the extent that my body, my physical body, that is like this young, vibrant body, is just refusing to get better. It's as if my mind has just said that it's just not worth it. There's just no point. Why even get better? And it is the most bizarre experience I have ever had because I don't know what to do about it. And I started to panic about a week and a half ago that this wasn't going away because it just did not make any viable sense why it wasn't leaving. And so I called my doctor. Doctor said, oh, well, we can't do anything. You have to call 111. So I called 111, who told me that I have to call my doctor. So I didn't know what to do. Like, what do you do? I did that for about an hour. Eventually, I got to speak to a consultant who then passed me on to a second consultant. The second consultant then passed me on to a third consultant. The third consultant then passed me back to consultant number 1, who then called an ambulance. At this point, I was really panicking, and I don't think that this was like panicking because I was sick. I think this was panicking because I realized that I was sick and nobody was listening to me. Inevitably, nobody cared. And I'm not blaming these individual people at all, because this is just the bureaucracy of trying to help and provide a service to millions of people, and the impossibility of doing that with little to no funding and a government who literally does not care about anything.
UK Deputy Prime Minister Dominic Raab has resigned. He's been under investigation following formal complaints about his behaviour. Raab was previously accused of bullying dating back to when he served as Foreign Minister and Justice Minister.
An ambulance was called. As I said, I was panicking at this point, and I think it was, as I said, because of just all this bureaucracy. I couldn't breathe. I was panicking. I was crying, trying my best to hold it in because I just was alone, scared and sick. After about an hour, I got a call from one of the 3 consultants, I don't remember now, and they said that they decided to cancel the ambulance because they determined that I'm actually fine and that I must, in this person's own words, keep my chin up, and they hope that I stop passing out. Mind you, in this whole thing, this had all been about my physical illness, coughing, vomiting, not being able to sit up. I'd passed out in the shower the night before. I purposely made sure that I did not make any of this about the fact that I felt lonely and scared and alone and had nobody to call or to talk to. I made sure that I made this all about what was physically wrong. You know, I knew if this was something that was anything to do with mental health, that I would instantly be ignored. But now I was freaking out because now what was physically wrong was being ignored. And it really freaked me out that people on the other end of a telephone, not even in my own county, who hadn't seen me, didn't know what I looked like, nothing, hadn't actually physically consulted me, were telling me that I was fine. And it made me realize that if I just lay in bed and I died, the fact that nobody would know just confounded my absolute state of anxiety and fear and sense of being alone. And this is something that I think a lot of people can really, a lot of young people now, just based on the surveys that I've been reading, on the articles that have come out, it's just this really, really awful cycle that I think so many people are suffering in silence. For instance, South Korea is paying South Koreans aged 9 to 24 a maximum of $500 a month to go out, because the loneliness epidemic among some cohorts of the most deprived or the most isolated individuals is so profound and is such an issue that they are actually paying people to go out and to try and make social connections. And this also ultimately cements, I think, really people not having enough money to actually go out and do things. That's all day. And it's really something that really cements so much shame in me, because I've always just been a very stoic person. I was always told that I have to be grateful. And because of that sense of gratitude, you can't complain. And everything has to be either fine or you just keep it within you. And because of that, this is just such a shameful thing for me to admit and for me to actually talk about just to my camera alone in my room. And the cherry on the cake of this sense of loneliness happened yesterday when I was lying in bed, coughing up, I don't even know what at this point. And I got a phone call from the landlord's go-between, that is from the estate agents. And they kicked me out because, and this is what just amazes me, I've lived in this house, in this room for 4 years now, and they're kicking me out because they can't viably raise the rent on me because, you know, this is just such shit accommodation. So they can't raise the rent because I don't have an ensuite, I don't have a kitchen, I just have this one room. And because they can't raise the rent, they've kicked me out so that they can then get somebody else to come in and pay more rent. Which surprisingly enough, well actually not surprisingly enough, I'm so sorry, why do I even have hope anymore? Which unsurprisingly enough is perfectly legal to do. So I have to leave. I just panicked. I panicked because I realized yesterday, trying to scramble and find new accommodation, that no one cares. I have friends, but not close enough, or not close enough either as friends or close enough in proximity that anybody can help me to move. I am finding it very difficult to move because I'm self-employed, and so it's very fishy. Also, in my opinion, as soon as they find out that I'm African, everything sort of just suddenly goes quiet and I don't hear back from them. And so yesterday the estate agent came in. They came in and they, you know, just came into my room because they're allowed to do that. And while I was in bed, ill, they handed me these letters of eviction, and it was just really, really weird because there was this moment when I realized that like people really just don't care, and this estate agent, she could see that I was sick. I could see that for a brief moment she had this little moral dilemma because she said, I'm so sorry, I'm really sorry, and then she just yeeted out of here. It just really cemented, I think, this issue that we have contemporarily. We are trying to survive on this illusion, this delusion that is being sold to us, that as individuals we can be self-sufficient, as individuals we can provide the love and care for ourselves through self-love products, through self-love marketing, through influencers telling us to buy all of their shit because that will make us happier. And I think that we do this because we feel that this is ultimately the only way. This is the only way that we can survive. This is making us even more miserable. It doesn't work for the vast majority of people.
In this video, I will show you how you can change your reality, what you need to do in order to change that reality, to shift it, and to actually do something with your life. Enough, blah, 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 please, I cannot do it. Please, I'm unlucky. No, you're lazy. Gotta have the discipline, yeah? And don't be like, oh no, it's only lucky people, lucky whatever. Honey, I was not lucky. I was not born lucky. I was born poor, very poor, yeah? And I completely changed my reality. Why? Because I had the discipline, the belief to do it.
There's this real disconnect in just human interactions, in community, in a sense of just being compassionate. And, you know, there's the internet where that's all happening, and that's just how the internet works, I suppose. But then it goes into the real world, and everything is so bureaucratically divided and indirect. The fact that my landlord needs to mediate conversation between their tenants because they just can't interact with us like human beings is so weird. It's just so unhealthy. It's so unhealthy that people are getting diagnosed through the telephone and are alone. I don't actually have anybody that I can call to get me medicine. I was told to get paracetamol, and it dawned on me, actually, I can't get paracetamol because I can't go out, and like, these are my small little problems. There are people who are living in such isolation and in such loneliness, like that they can't do what I'm doing now, like talking to a camera and sort of trying to feel better that way. And it's a real issue that I think can so easily be resolved through so many things that I think are taken for granted. I think about the small things, that these small little tweaks I feel in society, and these aren't necessarily small as in small to actually manifest or for these things to actually come into existence, but they're small in the way of providing viable solutions that would have such incredible effects and implications for so many people beyond the identity divides, beyond all these divisions and polarizations of bigotry and perceived bigotry and hate and animosity toward groups of people. For instance, affordable housing, like genuinely affordable housing, in which people can actually just look forward to being able to at least own an apartment. Being able to have control over your space, knowing that you can't just be kicked out of your home at any point in fucking time, knowing that you can have a pet. I think about this so much because I want a dog so badly. Like, I've wanted a dog for years. It really just is something that I think psychologically can help so many people. But in the UK, you're not allowed to have pets. With most 99.9% of landlords don't let you have pets. And it's just something that I think would solve so many issues for so many people. Just this one thing, having a purpose, having a meaning to get up in the morning, a meaning to go out because you have to take your pet for a walk and you have to meet other pet owners. You have to do all these sorts of things. Having something that actually loves you, like, you know, that feeling, having an actual sentient being who loves you is just such a freaky thing to think about in this day and age. We've honestly got to this point. It's so sad. I'm about to start crying. Yeah, it's just really been getting to me, I think. It's just this very weird state that we find ourselves in, I think, contemporarily. A lot of young people just very aimless and very, sorry for crying. I just think I needed to cry and I just haven't let myself cry. And then it turns into this perpetual cycle, I feel, like this cycle that is so frustrating because what I do is I come on camera, I talk to my camera about my problems, I upload it onto the internet. Then I have a comment section where people are just so lovely and so kind. And it makes me think, oh my God, where are these fucking people? It just reinforces how disconnected we are because we're just so indirectly in each other's inboxes of life. Oh God, here we go again. Bear with me. I love how we're making every single facet of our lives into content in order to deal with the misery. This isn't a unique thing. This isn't me just being all woe is me. Actually, it is, but that's not the main thing. I think the main thing is that so many more people than we think are lonely. So many people and so many of us are just increasingly distrusting. For instance, I think it was yesterday, somebody told me about a ContraPoints video and I was watching it and it's a brilliant video. Highly recommend watching it. But I think that it really cemented how everybody's initial thought about everybody now is immediate distrust. In terms of trusting your neighbors, trusting your community, trusting people, nobody trusts anybody. And I think because of this, people hyperfixate on these communities online. They hyperfixate on these stupid, trivial little arguments. I was watching this ContraPoints video and ContraPoints was describing these different kinds of arguments. This seems to be all the rage on the left, in the same way that on the right, all the rage is just getting outraged by just everything that anybody does, which isn't, well, this picture. Yeah. On the left, everything seems to be about some kind of argument that is either insidious or some kind of argument that is trying to hide or manipulate and exploit the truth.
You can't handle the truth!
Everything is this dog whistle or this Mott Brook argument or some kind of argument, and you need to look for these signs when you're just talking to a straight white man because he's obviously trying to manipulate you with this argument. I mean, in this brilliant video essay, ContraPoints was obviously just explaining a point, but I think this is an example of how with a lot of us online, not just the grifters like just Pearly Things or the whatever podcast, but also especially I think with video essayists explaining the world, with commentators explaining the world, it instills this initial preemptive distrust in people who I think for the vast majority of us are just trying to live our lives, are just trying to get from A to B, are trying not to cry when recording a video. As soon as that pebble of distrust is just dropped, it's got this ripple effect. That means that we don't trust anybody. We go into situations, we go onto Twitter, we go onto YouTube, we go into our everyday lives with this preemptive or prerequisite of distrust. And you can't start any viable relationship with anyone if you distrust them. And I think this just makes me so sad. I don't know why I'm crying about concepts and social commentary, but here we are. And I think it's starting to get to me, this preemptive distrust that we are all getting into all the time. And I think it's really destroying our relationships with each other.
Authorities say 20-year-old Kaylin Gillis of Schuylerville was with 3 friends in a car trying to find a friend's house Saturday night, but it was dark with no cell service in a very rural area, and they made a mistake and drove up the wrong driveway on Patterson Hill Road in Hebron, but quickly realized they were at the wrong place.
While they were leaving the residence, once they determined that they were at the wrong house, the subject came out on his porch for whatever reason and fired 2 shots, one of which struck the vehicle that Kaylin was in.
She was fatally injured.
The people who are most genuinely socio-economically and socially, not just online with their sort of different issues, but in real life, everyday terms, who are the most deprived, who really suffer the most from this, who suffer the most from this creation of divides, this creation of suspicion and of hyper critique of most people who are just living their lives, who don't really care or engage or understand these sort of terms of discrimination, these terms of the woke epidemic or whatever is trying to be sold to them as a sort of scapegoat for the real issues in society, such as loneliness, the real issues of unaffordable housing, of things that actually matter to the vast majority of people. And I think it's just getting to me. Oh my God, it took me 4 hours to do this makeup. I'm not going to ruin it. Laugh through the pain. So I hope that you're doing okay. Thank you for enduring whatever this was. I guess my reflections on sort of the loneliness, I suppose, epidemic that is really starting to get to me and is starting to hit home a bit too seriously. That is really starting to make me feel like I have no control. This is really something that is just, I think, so frightening and so shameful because you don't have control over it. And I just, in these past few weeks of just being so sick and just it not subsiding, that really frightens me. I would say look after yourself, self-love, but that's a scam. So I'm just going to tell you that even though I don't know you, all we have is each other in this world, and the sooner we start to realize it, the better. I trust you even though I don't know you, and that's all I can really offer, and I think that is the most important thing. We need to coexist, we need to collaborate with each other, we need to talk to each other. And I know that this seems like a stupid thing, but I think with everything, patience is so important. Trying to trust others even when it seems hopeless, especially now. I'm going to just be patient. I'm going to keep going, even though I really don't want to. And yeah, I trust you. And now I'm going to go and cry. So thank you.